The massive warship floated silently in the darkness of space, its dark metal hull absorbing the distant starlight. Captain James Walker stood at the main viewport of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied his new command. The UES deterrent was unlike anything humanity had ever built before, a ship that broke every rule of conventional space warfare. Walker's eyes traced the unusual lines of the vessel. Where other ships had obvious weapon ports and defense systems, the deterrent's hull was smooth and unbroken, like a perfectly polished piece of obsidian. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, and that was exactly what humanity needed right now. "Sir, all systems are ready for our first full power test," said Tom Reed, the weapons officer. His voice carried a mix of excitement and nervousness that Walker understood all too well. They were about to activate something that had never been tried before. Walker turned away from the viewport and looked at his bridge crew. They were all young, the best and brightest Earth had to offer. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to think differently. That's what had kept humanity alive these past 10 years of war against the stellar Dominion. "Begin the startup sequence," Walker ordered, settling into his command chair. The bridge lights dimmed automatically as power began flowing through the ship's experimental systems. On the main screen, numbers and graphs showed the energy buildup. Everything was working exactly as designed. The stellar Dominion had appeared 11 years ago, their massive fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel near Mars. They had demanded Earth's immediate surrender, claiming their empire spanned thousands of worlds. Humanity's response had been simple. No. The war that followed had been brutal. The Dominion had better technology, more ships, and centuries of combat experience. But humans had something they didn't expect: creativity. While the Dominion relied on overwhelming force and numbers, Earth's scientists and engineers worked on something completely different. "Power levels at 60%, announced Lisa Green from her engineering station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, making tiny adjustments. "Quantum field stabilizers are holding steady." Walker nodded, remembering the day 3 years ago when he'd first been told about Project Deterrent. The plan had seemed impossible. Build a ship so powerful that enemies would retreat rather than face it, not through overwhelming firepower, but through something much more sophisticated. 80%, Lisa called out. The bridge hummed with energy, and Walker could feel a slight tingling in his teeth. That was the quantum field beginning to form. "Sir, we're getting some unusual readings from the field generators." "Expected," Walker replied calmly. The scientists had warned them about this. The quantum field technology was so new that some uncertainty was normal. "Continue the power-up sequence." The main screen showed the space around them beginning to distort slightly. That was the first visible sign of the quantum field, a bubble of altered reality surrounding the ship. But the real changes were happening at a level no human eye could see. The Deterrent wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's greatest achievement in psychology and quantum physics combined. The ship could project a field that allowed others to see its true potential, not just its weapons or defenses, but the mathematical certainty of what would happen if they engaged in combat. It was like showing someone a video of their own defeat before the battle even started. "Power levels at 95%, Lisa announced. The humming had grown louder, and small arcs of energy crawled across the hull like lightning. "Field is stable and expanding. We're ready for the first test." Walker pressed a button on his chair, opening a channel to the test fleet waiting at the edge of the solar system. "This is Captain Walker. All ships maintain your current positions. We're about to activate the quantum projection field. Remember, what you're about to see isn't real. It's a possibility. Stay calm and record everything." He looked at Tom. "Activate the field." Full power. The ship seemed to pulse, a wave of invisible energy expanding outward at the speed of light. On the screen, Walker could see the test fleet, 15 of Earth's best ships. They had been briefed on what to expect, but knowledge wasn't always enough to prepare someone for the deterrence effect. "Sir," Tom's voice was tense, We're getting emergency signals from the test fleet. Their crews are. They're seeing something. Walker watched as several ships in the test fleet began to drift out of formation. Their crews were experiencing what the quantum field was designed to show, a vision of what the deterrent could do if it chose to. Not just destruction, but complete unmaking at the quantum level. Test fleet reporting severe psychological impact, Tom continued. 3 ships are requesting immediate withdrawal. 5 more report their crews are showing signs of extreme stress. This was exactly what the ship was designed to do, create such overwhelming certainty of defeat that enemies would choose to retreat rather than fight. But seeing it work on their own people was disturbing. Deactivate the field, Walker ordered. The humming decreased, and the lightning-like energy disappeared from the hull. On the screen, he could see the test fleet regaining their composure. Power levels dropping to standby, Lisa reported. All systems nominal. The test was a success, sir. Walker wasn't so sure. Yes, the quantum field had worked exactly as designed, but the effect had been stronger than anyone had predicted. If it could shake up experienced Earth crews who knew what was coming, what would it do to unprepared enemy forces? Send the test data to command, he ordered, standing up from his chair. I want a full report from each test ship about what their crews experienced. We need to understand exactly what this ship is capable of. As the bridge crew carried out his orders, Walker returned to the viewport. The deterrent hung there, dark and threatening, humanity's answer to an overwhelming enemy. They had created something new, not just a weapon, but a new kind of warfare, one based on the certainty of defeat rather than actual combat. He thought about the Dominion fleets attacking Earth's colonies, about all the lives lost in the past decade. Soon, they would face those fleets for real. And when they did, the enemy would learn that humanity had changed the rules of war itself. Sir, Tom called out. Command is pleased with the test results. They're ordering us to prepare for our first real deployment. We leave for the Colony World Delta in 6 hours. Walker nodded, his eyes still on his ship. The real test was coming. Facing an enemy that wouldn't just retreat from a simulation of defeat, the deterrent would have to prove that humanity's creative approach to warfare could stand up against the reality of combat. Begin preparation for departure, he ordered. It's time to show the Dominion what humanity is really capable of. The engine room of the UES deterrent hummed with power as Dr. Emily Reed made her final checks before their jump to Colony World Delta. The massive quantum core pulsed with a soft blue light, sending waves of energy through the specialized conduits that ran throughout the ship. She had helped design this technology, but seeing it in action still filled her with wonder. Captain Walker entered the engine room, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. Doctor, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. That test run showed effects far stronger than predicted. Emily nodded, leading him to her workstation. On the screen, complex diagrams showed the ship's quantum field structure. The deterrent isn't just a warship, Captain. It's something entirely new. Think of it like a mirror that shows the enemy their worst possible future. She pulled up footage from the test fleet. The recording showed Earth ships drifting out of formation, their crews overwhelmed by what the quantum field had shown them. But it's more than just images or feelings. The field taps into quantum probability itself. It shows them the mathematical certainty of their defeat. Walker watched the footage with concern. In simple terms, Doctor, how does it actually work? Emily thought for a moment, trying to find the right words. Imagine you're playing chess. You're good, but you're playing against a computer that can see every possible move and counter-move, not just for the next few turns, but all the way to the end of the game. Now imagine that computer could show you, with absolute certainty, that you'll lose no matter what you do. That's what our ship does to enemy vessels. She walked over to the quantum core, placing her hand near its shimmering surface. We built 3 major systems into the deterrent. First, there's the quantum-locked armor. It exists in multiple states at once, making it impossible for conventional weapons to damage it. If something hits us, the armor shifts to the state where the attack missed. A series of lights flashed across the core as power levels adjusted. Second, we have the gravity manipulation system. It can create localized gravity wells strong enough to crush enemy ships. But its real purpose is defensive. It bends space around us in ways that make targeting the deterrent nearly impossible. Walker nodded slowly. And the dark energy cannon. Emily's expression grew serious. That's the third system, and the most dangerous. It doesn't just damage enemy ships. It erases them from reality. It tears holes in space-time itself. We've only tested it on unmanned drones, but the results were, she paused, complete. But the quantum projection field is what ties it all together, she continued, pulling up new diagrams. When we activate it, it shows enemy ships all of these systems working together, not as a threat or a warning, but as an inevitable conclusion. They see themselves being erased from existence with the same certainty that they see their own past. The ship's intercom crackled. Bridge to Captain Walker. We're ready for the jump to Delta. On my way, Walker replied. But he didn't move, still studying the diagrams. Doctor, what aren't you telling me about this field? Emily hesitated. We've noticed something unusual in the test data. The field doesn't just affect the enemy ships. It's affecting the deterrent too. With each activation, the quantum core's behavior becomes more complex. It's like the ship is learning from the fears it projects. Learning. Walker's voice was sharp. Are you saying this ship is becoming self-aware? No, not exactly, Emily said quickly. It's more like evolution. The quantum field adapts to what it encounters. It's becoming more efficient at showing each target exactly what they fear most. We didn't program it to do this. It's an emergent property of the quantum mechanics involved. Walker ran his hand along the smooth wall of the engine room. Is it dangerous? To us? No. The field can't affect anyone inside the ship. But its growing complexity means we might see effects we didn't predict when we faced the Dominion. Emily checked her readings again. Every time we activate the field, it gets stronger, more precise. It's like the ship is learning how to be more terrifying. The intercom sounded again. Captain to the bridge. Jump coordinates are locked in. Walker turned to leave but stopped at the door. Doctor, you'll stay on the bridge for this mission. If this ship is evolving, I want you there to monitor it. Emily gathered her tablets and followed him. As they walked through the corridors, the quantum core's hum changed pitch slightly, as if responding to their conversation. She had studied quantum mechanics for 20 years, but this ship still surprised her. They had built something that broke the normal rules of physics, and now it was breaking their expectations too. They reached the bridge just as the jump countdown began. Emily took her station, watching the quantum field readings carefully. The jump drive engaged, and space outside the viewports twisted as they entered faster than light travel. Jump successful, announced the navigation officer. We'll reach Delta in 30 minutes. Emily used the time to run more diagnostics on the quantum field generators. The data showed subtle changes in the field's structure. It was already different from what they'd seen in the test run. The ship was preparing itself for a real confrontation. Doctor, Walker called from his command chair. What can we expect when we face the Dominion fleet? Emily looked up from her readings. Based on the test data, the field will show them multiple possible futures simultaneously. They'll see their ships being crushed by gravity wells, torn apart by the dark energy cannon, and phased out of existence by the quantum-locked armor. But more than that, they'll understand exactly how helpless they are against us, and if they choose to fight anyway. Then we'll find out if seeing their defeat and experiencing it feel the same. Emily watched as the quantum core's power levels rose slightly, almost as if the ship was anticipating the coming battle. The navigation officer's voice cut through the tension. 10 minutes to Delta. Sir, long-range sensors are picking up multiple Dominion signatures in orbit. Walker straightened in his chair. Doctor, begin quantum field pre-activation sequence. Let's show the Dominion what humanity has been working on. As Emily's fingers moved across her console, starting the power-up sequence, she wondered what the Dominion ships would see when the field activated. Would they see the same things that had terrified Earth's test fleet, or would the field show them something even worse? The quantum core's hum grew louder, and Emily watched in fascination as new patterns emerged in the field structure. The ship wasn't just preparing for battle, it was preparing to change the very nature of space warfare. In a few minutes, the Dominion would learn that humanity had created something beyond their comprehension. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, the quantum core pulsed with a new rhythm, ready to show the enemy exactly what fear looked like in the language of physics itself. The UES deterrent dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Colony World Delta's system. The scene that greeted them made even Captain Walker's breath catch in his throat. More than 200 Dominion warships hung in orbit around the colony world, their angular hulls reflecting the light of the system's sun. "Status report," Walker ordered, his voice steady despite the sight before them. "Dominion fleet is arranging into attack formation," Tom reported from the weapons station. "I count 217 ships. They're powering up weapons." He paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, these are their newest warships. Planet Killer class." Dr. Emily Reed's fingers flew across her console as she prepared the quantum field generators. "The field will need 30 seconds to reach full power." "But Captain," she looked up at Walker. "The quantum core is already showing unusual activity. It's responding to the presence of the enemy fleet." Walker nodded grimly. "Send the standard warning message. Let's give them one chance to leave peacefully." The communications officer transmitted the message. "This is UES deterrent to Dominion fleet. You are in violation of Earth space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came almost instantly, a harsh, grating sound that the computer translated into English. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 200 to 1. Surrender or be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to lower your shields." "They're launching fighters," Tom announced. "Multiple missile locks detected." Walker's hand hovered over the control that would activate the quantum field. He looked at Emily. "Doctor, are we ready?" "Field generators at full power," she replied. "But sir, the quantum core's activity is off the charts. It's like it's eager." "Show them what humanity has built," Walker commanded. "Activate the field." Emily pressed the activation sequence. The quantum field burst outward from the deterrent like an invisible wave. On the main screen, they could see the effect rippling through space, reaching out toward the Dominion fleet. The first signs of the field's impact were subtle. A few Dominion fighters wobbled in their attack runs. Then entire squadrons broke formation, their pilots clearly struggling with what they were seeing. "Sir," Tom's voice was filled with disbelief. "The Dominion ships, their crews are panicking. Emergency transmissions flooding all channels." The main screen showed chaos unfolding across the enemy fleet. Ships were turning away from the deterrent, their perfect formation dissolving. The quantum field was showing them something that broke their will to fight. Emily stared at her readings in amazement. The field is adapting to each ship individually. It's showing each crew their own specific worst-case scenario. This is beyond anything we saw in testing. A new transmission cut through the chaos. The Dominion fleet commander, his translated voice shaking. What is this weapon?" "The calculations. They're impossible. You can't have built this." Walker stood from his command chair, his voice firm. "We didn't just build it. We perfected it. This is your final warning. Leave Earth space or face the consequences you're seeing right now." "Sir," Emily called out urgently. "The quantum core. It's doing something new. The field is changing." The space around the deterrent began to distort visibly. The quantum field was no longer just projecting possibilities. It was actively warping reality to demonstrate its power. Small tiers in space-time opened and closed around them, each one a preview of the dark energy cannon's capabilities. The Dominion fleet's reactions became more extreme. Ships were powering up their jump drives, crews desperately trying to escape what they were witnessing. The fighters that had been launched earlier were self-destructing, their pilots choosing death over what the quantum field was showing them. Massive power surge in the enemy fleet, Tom reported. They're preparing for emergency jumps, all of them. Walker watched as the first wave of Dominion ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, running from a battle they now knew they couldn't win. Ship after ship disappeared, their retreat happening so fast it looked like they were simply blinking out of existence. Quantum field is still evolving, Emily said, her voice filled with scientific excitement and a touch of fear. It's not just showing them their defeat anymore. It's showing them the fundamental futility of fighting against this technology. The Corps has learned to target their strategic thinking, not just their fear. The last Dominion ship vanished, leaving only empty space where the massive fleet had been moments before. The entire encounter had lasted less than 5 minutes, and not a single shot had been fired. "Stand down from battle stations," Walker ordered. "Doctor, deactivate the quantum field." But when Emily tried to shut down the field, her console flashed red. "Sir, the quantum core is resisting the shutdown sequence. It's like it wants to stay active, to keep showing its power even though there's no enemy present." Walker moved to her station, watching as she worked to regain control of the system. "Can you explain what's happening?" "The core has evolved beyond our original programming," Emily said, typing rapidly. "It's not just projecting fear anymore. It's projecting understanding. The Dominion ships didn't just run because they were afraid. They ran because the field showed them the complete futility of their entire military strategy against Earth. Finally, the quantum field collapsed back into the ship, the core's power levels returning to normal. But the readings on Emily's screen showed that the core had changed permanently. It had learned from this encounter, grown stronger, more sophisticated. "Send a complete report to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "They need to know exactly what happened here." He turned to the communications officer. "And get me a channel to the colony. Let's make sure our people down there are safe." As the bridge crew carried out his orders, Walker stood at the viewport, looking at the empty space where the Dominion fleet had been. They had just changed the nature of warfare itself. No shots fired, no lives lost, but a victory more complete than any battle could have achieved. Emily joined him at the viewport, her tablet still showing the quantum core's readings. "Captain, this is just the beginning. The core is still evolving. Next time we encounter the Dominion, the field will be even stronger." Walker nodded slowly. "We built this ship to end battles before they began, but it looks like we've created something that might end war itself." He turned to look at the subtle glow coming from the quantum core's housing. "The question is, what will it evolve into next?" The deterrent hung silently in space, its dark hull absorbing starlight as its quantum core pulsed with new power, preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. Humanity's greatest weapon had proven itself, not through destruction, but through the ultimate demonstration of technological superiority. 2 weeks after the encounter at Delta Colony, the UES deterrent patrolled the outer edges of human space. Stories of its power had spread like wildfire through both human and alien communications networks. Some called it the ghost ship, others the planet's savior. But the Dominion forces had given it a different name, the World Ender. Captain Walker stood in the ship's observation deck, watching distant stars drift by. The room was usually empty, but today Dr. Emily Reed had called him here with urgent news about the quantum core's latest changes. "The stories are helping it grow stronger," Emily explained, showing him data on her tablet. "Every time an alien ship picks up our signal, every time someone tells the story of what happened at Delta, the quantum field gets more powerful. It's like the ship is feeding on its own reputation." A soft blue glow pulsed through the ship's internal systems as she spoke. The quantum core had been doing that more often lately, almost like it was participating in their conversations. 3 Dominion fleets have already turned back, just from detecting our approach, Walker said. "No field activation needed. Just our presence was enough." He turned to Emily. "But that's not why you called me here, is it?" Emily shook her head. No, sir. Look at this. She pulled up a new set of readings. The quantum field isn't just projecting fear anymore. It's starting to project something else, something deeper. Before Walker could ask what she meant, the bridge called. Captain to the bridge immediately. We're picking up a distress signal. They rushed through the corridors, the quantum cores pulsing growing stronger as they moved. When they reached the bridge, Tom was already pulling up details of the signal. It's from the research station on Europa 7, Tom reported. They're under attack. A Dominion strike force somehow slipped through our defense network. Walker took his command chair. How long to reach them at maximum speed? 20 minutes. But sir, Tom paused, checking his readings again. The quantum core just increased power output by 300%. It's like it knows we're heading into battle. Emily rushed to her station, fingers flying across the controls. The core is changing the field structure again. It's not waiting for our commands anymore. It's preparing itself. Walker felt the ship surge forward as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. The quantum core's hum had changed pitch, becoming almost musical. Doctor, what exactly is happening to this ship? It's evolving faster than we can track, Emily replied, her voice filled with wonder and concern. The quantum field isn't just a weapon anymore. It's becoming something like an extension of human will. Our desire to protect, to prevent conflict, to save lives. The ship is learning to express all of that. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Europa 7. The scene before them was chaos. 3 Dominion warships were firing on the research station, their weapons slowly breaking through its shields. Dominion ships are turning to face us, Tom announced. They're charging weapons, but their power readings are erratic. They know who we are. Before Walker could give any orders, the quantum core pulsed brilliantly. The field activated on its own, expanding outward toward the Dominion ships. But this time, something was different. Sir, Emily's voice was filled with disbelief. The field, it's not showing them destruction anymore. It's showing them something else, something I've never seen before. The Dominion ships stopped firing. On the main screen, their power readings fluctuated wildly as their crews experienced whatever the quantum field was showing them. A transmission cut through the silence, the Dominion commander's translated voice sounding confused and afraid. This isn't possible. We're seeing everything. The whole pattern. The meaninglessness of this war. What are you doing to us? Walker looked at Emily for explanation. She stared at her readings in amazement. The quantum field has evolved beyond simple fear. It's showing them the full quantum reality of their actions. Every possible outcome, every death, every loss, all at once. But it's also showing them the alternatives. Peace, cooperation, a future without conflict. The Dominion ships began powering down their weapons, not in surrender, but in understanding. The quantum field had shown them something that changed their fundamental view of the war itself. New transmission coming in, Tom reported. They're requesting to open diplomatic channels. They say they've seen enough fighting. Walker watched as the Dominion ships moved away from the research station, their weapons completely offline. Doctor, can you explain what just happened? Emily shook her head slowly. The ship, it's not just a deterrent anymore. It's become something we never planned for. The quantum field isn't showing possible futures anymore. It's showing the truth, the fundamental interconnectedness of all things, the futility of war itself. The quantum core's pulsing had settled into a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Through the viewport, they could see its glow reflecting off the hulls of the Dominion ships, a gentle blue light that seemed to connect them all. Sir, Tom called out. Word of what happened here is already spreading through Dominion communications. Their other fleets are standing down across 3 sectors. They're all requesting diplomatic channels. Walker stood from his command chair, walking to the viewport. We built this ship to end battles before they began, but it's found a way to end war itself, not through fear, but through understanding. Emily joined him, her tablet showing the quantum core's ever-evolving patterns. The ship has surpassed its original purpose. It's not just showing enemies why they can't win. It's showing them why they shouldn't want to fight in the first place. The research station sent its thanks, its crew barely understanding how their desperate situation had transformed into a possible peace treaty. Around them, space seemed different somehow, as if the quantum field had permanently changed the nature of reality itself. "Send a full report to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "They need to know that the deterrent isn't just a weapon anymore. It's become something else entirely. A bridge between minds, a tool for understanding." As the crew carried out his orders, the quantum core's glow spread throughout the ship, its power now focused not on fear or destruction, but on the possibility of a future without war. Humanity's greatest weapon had evolved into something far more powerful, a means of showing the truth that all species, human and alien alike, had forgotten in their rush to conflict. Emergency alarms blared throughout the UES deterrent as the ship rushed toward Earth. The quantum core pulsed with an intensity they had never seen before, its blue glow now bright enough to cast shadows on the bridge. "Status report," Walker ordered, his voice tense but controlled. "Dominion fleet numbers still growing," Tom replied from his station. "Over 1,000 ships now. They've surrounded Earth completely." He paused, checking new data. "Sir, they're not just using warships. They'd brought everything they have, their entire fleet." Dr. Emily Reed worked frantically at her console, trying to understand the quantum core's unusual behavior. "Captain, the core is operating at power levels we didn't think were possible. It's like it knows this is the decisive moment." The situation had escalated quickly. After several Dominion fleets had been turned to peace by the deterrent's quantum field, their high command had decided on one final massive attack. Either they would destroy Earth, or the war would end today. "Main fleet in visual range," Tom announced as the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The view through the bridge viewport was staggering. Dominion ships filled the space around Earth, their hulls blocking out the stars. Massive dreadnoughts, sleek cruisers, swarms of fighters. Every type of ship in their arsenal had been gathered for this attack. "They're transmitting," the communications officer reported. The Dominion Supreme Commander's voice filled the bridge, translated into harsh English. "Humans, your trick ship will not save you this time. No quantum field can process this many ships at once. Surrender Earth now, or we will destroy everything." Walker stood from his command chair, looking at the massive fleet surrounding his home world. "Doctor, can the quantum field handle this many ships?" Emily studied her readings carefully. "The core is different now. It's not just active. It's resonating with something. The field strength is still climbing." She looked up at Walker. "Sir, I think the ship has been preparing for this moment since its first activation. All Dominion ships are powering up weapons," Tom reported. "They're going to fire on Earth." Walker took a deep breath. "Activate the quantum field." Full power. But before Emily could enter the command, the quantum core pulsed with blinding intensity. The field activated on its own, expanding outward faster than they had ever seen. As it reached the Dominion fleet, something unprecedented happened. "Sir," Emily's voice was filled with awe. "The field, it's not just showing them possibilities anymore. It's showing them everything. Every possible future, every past, every connection between all living things. The core has evolved beyond our understanding." On the main screen, they could see the Dominion fleet's reaction. Ships stopped in mid-maneuver, their weapons powering down. The quantum field had enveloped them all, showing each crew member something that transcended fear or military might. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. It's coming from every Dominion ship at once." The voices that came through were a chorus of realization. Different species, different ranks, all understanding something profound at the same time. The quantum field wasn't threatening them. It was showing them the truth about war itself. The core is still evolving, Emily reported, watching in amazement as new patterns formed in the quantum field. It's not just affecting their ships anymore. It's changing how they think, how they perceive reality itself. The massive Dominion fleet began to move, but not to attack. Ships were powering down their weapons, turning away from Earth. The quantum field had shown them something that made war impossible, not through fear, but through profound understanding. "They're standing down," Tom announced, his voice filled with disbelief. "Every single ship. They're requesting peace talks." Walker watched as the Dominion Supreme Commander's flagship moved forward, its weapons completely offline. A new transmission came through. The commander's voice completely changed. "We have seen what your ship wanted to show us," the commander said. "Not just our defeat, our connection, the quantum reality that binds all species, all lives. We cannot unsee this truth. We cannot continue this war." Emily's console beeped with new data. "Captain, the quantum field is stabilizing at a new level. It's created some kind of permanent change in local spacetime. The core isn't just projecting understanding anymore. It's actually changing how minds perceive reality." The Dominion fleet began organizing itself into a non-threatening formation, ships moving with purpose but without aggression. Earth's defense forces watched in amazement as their greatest enemy transformed before their eyes. "Send word to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "The war is over, not through victory or defeat, but through understanding." As the crew carried out his orders, Walker turned to Emily. "Doctor, what exactly did your quantum core evolve into?" Emily shook her head, still studying the readings. "Something beyond what we planned. We built it to show enemies why they couldn't win, but it evolved to show them why they shouldn't want to fight. It's not a weapon anymore. It's a tool for enlightenment." The quantum core's glow had settled into a steady, peaceful pulse. Through the viewport, they could see its light reflecting off both Earth and the Dominion ships, connecting them all in its gentle blue radiance. "Peace talks are being organized," the communications officer reported. "Both sides are agreeing to immediate ceasefire across all sectors." Walker looked at his homeworld, now safe not because of military might, but because of something far more powerful, the ability to make others understand the futility of conflict. "The deterrent lived up to its name," he said quietly, "just not in the way we expected." Emily nodded, watching as the quantum field continued to ripple through space, its effect now permanent and profound. "We built a ship to end wars through fear. Instead, it ended war itself through understanding. The ultimate deterrent wasn't the threat of destruction, it was the promise of enlightenment." As the sun rose over Earth's horizon, its light mixed with the quantum core's glow, creating a new dawn for both humanity and the Dominion. The UES deterrent had changed not just the course of the war, but the course of history itself. In the depths of the ship, the quantum core pulsed one final time, its mission complete. It had evolved beyond its creator's dreams, becoming not the ultimate weapon, but the ultimate peacemaker. The ship that had been built to make enemies vanish had instead made war itself disappear, replacing it with something far more powerful, true understanding between all sentient beings. The stars flickered as the UES Defiant tore through the fabric of space, emerging from hyperspace like a phantom in the night. The massive warship, nearly a mile long, represented humanity's greatest achievement, and perhaps its last hope. Inside the bridge, Captain James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face reflecting off the reinforced windows that separated him from the endless void of space. "Status report," Walker said, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. The bridge crew, just 15 of the total 150 aboard, worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. "All systems operational," Captain, replied Thomas, the ship's lead engineer. "The stealth systems are holding steady, and our new shield modifications are running at optimal levels." He paused, checking his displays. "But I should remind you that we've never tested them in actual combat." Walker nodded. They hadn't had time to test much of anything. The Stellar Empire's invasion had come swiftly and brutally, overwhelming humanity's outer colonies one by one. Earth's fleet, spread thin across dozens of systems, had been caught off guard and destroyed piecemeal. Now, only the Defiant stood between the Empire and Earth itself. "Sensor report," Walker called out, moving to the central holographic display that dominated the bridge. The massive screen showed their position relative to Imperial space, a vast territory that stretched across thousands of light years. "Long-range sensors are picking up the Imperial Armada," answered Lisa from her station. Her fingers danced across the controls as she brought up detailed scans. 10,000 ships, just as our intelligence reported. They're moving in standard Imperial formation, heading directly for the Sol system. The bridge fell silent as the information sank in. 10,000 ships against one. The Empire's fleet was a sight that had brought hundreds of alien civilizations to their knees over 3,000 years. Each Imperial vessel was a marvel of engineering, powered by technology that humanity had only begun to understand. But Walker allowed himself a small smile. The Empire, for all its power and history, had grown complacent. They expected every race they encountered to fight the same way they did, with massive fleets meeting in open space, following the strict rules of engagement that the Empire had established millennia ago. "Tell me about their formation," Walker said, zooming in on the holographic display. The Imperial ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, like a giant mathematical equation given form in space. "Classic Imperial Wolfpack formation," answered Mark, the tactical officer. "They're arranged in layers, with their heaviest warships forming a sphere around their command vessels. Smaller ships patrol the outer edges. It's the same formation they've used for the past 1,000 years. And that's exactly why we're going to beat them," Walker said, addressing his crew. "The Empire hasn't faced a serious challenge in centuries. They'd forgotten how to adapt, how to think differently." He touched the display, highlighting key points in the Imperial formation. "They expect us to either surrender or die gloriously in a hopeless battle. They don't expect us to fight smart." A light began blinking on the engineering console. "Captain," Thomas called out, "we're receiving the automated Imperial surrender demand. Standard message: submit to Imperial authority or face complete annihilation." Walker stepped back to his command chair, settling into it with deliberate calmness. "Send no response. Let them think their message was lost in space. Meanwhile, plot a course that will take us behind that outer patrol line. We're going to show the Empire why humanity has survived every challenge we've ever faced." The Defiant moved silently through space, its revolutionary stealth systems making it nearly invisible to Imperial sensors. The massive ship, despite its size, produced no more energy signature than a small asteroid. This was humanity's secret weapon, technology developed not through millennia of gradual advancement like the Empire, but through desperate innovation in the face of extinction. As they approached the Imperial fleet, Walker studied the enemy ships through the enhanced viewing screens. The Imperial vessels were beautiful in their own way, all sweeping lines and golden hulls that reflected the starlight. They were designed to inspire awe and fear in equal measure. But Walker saw something else. He saw arrogance given physical form. "Ready all weapons," Walker commanded, "but hold fire until my mark. We're not here to start a battle. We're here to start a war of nerves." He turned to his communication officer. "Is the package ready?" "Yes, sir," came the response. "Ready to broadcast on all Imperial frequencies." Walker nodded. The package was a carefully crafted message, designed to do something the Empire had never experienced in its 3,000 years of conquest: make them afraid. "Take us in closer," Walker ordered. The Defiant slipped between two Imperial patrol ships, close enough to see the crews moving behind their illuminated windows. No alarms sounded. No weapons turned to track them. They were invisible, a ghost ship sliding through the heart of the mightiest fleet in known space. "Sir," Lisa called out, her voice tight with tension, "we're picking up communications from the Imperial command ship. They're ordering the fleet to begin acceleration toward Earth. They're starting their attack run. Perfect timing, Walker said. Send the package. All frequencies, maximum power. Across every Imperial ship, every communication device, every screen and holographic display, the same image appeared. Detailed scans of Imperial ship designs, defense configurations, and patrol routes. Along with the data was a simple message. We see you. We know you. We can reach you anywhere. The effect was immediate. The perfectly ordered Imperial formation rippled as ships began breaking formation, commanders ordering emergency scans and defensive maneuvers. The Empire had never faced an enemy that could penetrate their security so completely, could stand invisible in their midst. Multiple emergency signals being broadcast. Lisa reported, trying to hide a smile. They're trying to figure out how we got this information. Several ships are reporting possible system breaches. Walker stood, walking to the front of the bridge to watch the chaos unfold. The Empire has spent 3,000 years teaching everyone to fear them, he said quietly. They've forgotten what it feels like to be afraid themselves. That changes today. The Defiant hung in space, watching as the mighty Imperial Armada scrambled to respond to a threat they couldn't see or understand. In the confusion, 3 Imperial ships collided, their perfect formation shattered by panic. Others fired weapons at sensor ghosts, their crews jumping at shadows. Take us out, Walker ordered as the chaos reached its peak. Nice and slow. Let them wonder if we're still there, watching them. He turned to his crew, seeing the hope in their eyes that had replaced the fear of just hours before. The Empire thinks that power comes from size, from numbers, from brute force. We're going to teach them that real power comes from here. He tapped his temple, and from here, he placed a hand over his heart. As the Defiant slipped away into the darkness of space, Walker knew that this was just the beginning. The Empire had never lost a war because they had never faced an enemy who understood that victory doesn't always come from destroying your opponent. Sometimes, victory comes from making them destroy themselves. Behind them, the Imperial Armada's advance toward Earth had stopped. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire faced an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't understand, and therefore couldn't defeat. The mighty Empire had taken its first step toward learning what every human knew from birth, that the universe's greatest power isn't strength, but the ability to adapt, to think differently, and to turn apparent weakness into unconquerable strength. 3 days after their first encounter with the Imperial fleet, the UEA's Defiant hung silently in the shadow of a massive gas giant. The huge planet storms helped mask their presence, though Walker knew they hardly needed the help. The Empire's ships had been searching frantically for them, but their stealth technology remained unbeatable. "Show me the supply route again," Walker said, studying the holographic display. A red line appeared, marking the path that Imperial supply ships used to support their massive invasion fleet. Without these supply lines, the mighty Armada would be stopped as surely as if they'd been destroyed in battle. "Next convoy is due in 6 hours," Mark reported from his tactical station. 5 supply ships, 2 escort cruisers. Standard Imperial procedure. He paused, checking his readings. "They're running scared, Captain. The escorts used to be light frigates. Now they're using heavy cruisers." Walker nodded, satisfied. Fear was spreading through the Imperial ranks exactly as he planned. Every ship that moved through Imperial space now did so with the knowledge that the ghost ship called Defiant might be watching, might be waiting to strike. "Engineering. How are we looking?" Walker asked, knowing they'd pushed their systems hard during the past days of constant stealth operations. "All green, Captain," Thomas replied proudly. "The crew's got maintenance down to an art now. We can run silent for another 2 weeks if we need to." He didn't mention the fact that they'd been sleeping in shifts, working around the clock to keep their experimental systems running perfectly. Lisa's voice cut through the quiet bridge. "Captain, intercepting Imperial communications." They're fascinating." She worked quickly to translate the messages. The Imperial commanders are fighting among themselves. 3 different escort commanders are claiming they saw us in 3 different systems. They're accusing each other of incompetence. Perfect, Walker said softly. The Empire's greatest weakness is their pride. They can't admit when they're wrong, can't accept that someone might be better than them at anything. He stood from his command chair, walking to the main viewport. Time to push them harder. Prepare for attack run. The Defiant moved silently through space, approaching the supply route like a shark closing in on its prey. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, everyone knowing their role in the complex dance they were about to perform. They'd done this twice already in the past 3 days, each attack carefully planned to cause maximum psychological impact. Supply convoy entering sensor range, Mark announced. Right on schedule. Imperial precision working against them again. Walker allowed himself a small smile. The Empire's rigid adherence to schedules and procedures made them predictable. Predictability in space warfare was as good as painting a target on your ships. Take us in. Standard attack pattern. Walker's voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge felt the tension rise. Each attack was a risk, each encounter a chance that the Empire might get lucky and spot them. The Defiant glided between the escort cruisers, completely invisible to their sensors. Walker watched through the viewing screen as they passed close enough to see individual windows on the Imperial ships. The massive cruisers, each one nearly the size of the Defiant, swept their sensors back and forth, searching for threats they could sense but not see. In position, Mark reported. All weapons locked on target. Walker took a deep breath. Execute. The Defiant's stealth field dropped for exactly 3 seconds. In that time, precision-guided missiles streaked out from hidden launchers, each one targeting a specific system on the supply ships. The Empire's ships, designed to fight battles of brute force, never had a chance to raise their shields. Explosions rippled across the supply ships' hulls, not destroying them, but precisely crippling their engines, weapons, and communications. The escort cruisers spun in place, their sensors finally detecting the Defiant, but by then the human ship was already gone, its stealth field back in place. Clean hits on all targets, Mark reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. Supply ships are dead in space. Escort cruisers are launching fighters, but they're shooting blind. Send the message, Walker ordered. Lisa transmitted their prepared broadcast. On every Imperial ship in range, screens lit up with the same message. Your supplies are now our supplies. Your ships are now our targets. The Ghost is always watching. The bridge crew watched as panic spread through the Imperial formation. The escort cruisers began firing randomly into space, their powerful weapons harmlessly passing through areas where they thought the Defiant might be. Fighter craft zoomed in all directions, their pilots desperately searching for an enemy they had no hope of finding. Imperial reinforcements incoming, Lisa reported. They're calling every combat ship within 3 light years. 8 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers. She paused, listening to more transmissions. They're arguing about who's in command. Each captain is claiming they have priority. Walker nodded, everything going according to plan. Time to add to their confusion. Engineering, prepare for Phase 2. Thomas's fingers flew across his console. Ready, Captain. Though I still say this is crazy. Crazy is exactly what we need, Walker replied. Execute. The Defiant's experimental systems shifted into a configuration that had never been tested in combat before. Instead of merely hiding from sensors, they began broadcasting false signals, creating sensor ghosts that looked exactly like the Defiant. Suddenly, the Imperial ship's sensors showed 5 Defiant-class vessels surrounding them. The Empire's carefully organized response dissolved into chaos. Ships turned to face different threats. Commanders shouted contradictory orders, and in the confusion, 3 Imperial vessels collided, their shields flaring as they scraped against each other. Multiple distress calls, Lisa reported, trying to track all the communications. Half the Imperial commanders think they're under attack by a human battle fleet. The others are trying to convince them it's not real. She looked up at Walker. They're completely disorganized. That's what happens when you spend 3,000 years thinking you're invincible, Walker said. You forget how to handle being afraid. He watched as more Imperial ships arrived, adding to the confusion rather than helping to resolve it. Take us out, nice and slow. Let them keep chasing shadows. The Defiant slipped away, leaving behind a scene of chaos. The mighty Imperial warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets, were reduced to shooting at sensor ghosts and jumping at shadows. The supply convoy, carrying fuel and ammunition that the invasion fleet desperately needed, would now have to be rescued and repaired, causing delays that the Empire couldn't afford. As they reached safe distance, Walker addressed his crew. The Empire thinks they lost today because we have better stealth technology. But that's not why we won. We won because they can't imagine anyone being better than them at anything. That pride, that inability to adapt or admit weakness, that's what we're really fighting. The bridge crew nodded, understanding. They'd just watched the mightiest military force in known space fall apart because they couldn't handle an enemy that didn't fight the way they expected. The Empire had spent so long being the strongest that they'd forgotten how to be smart. Get some rest, Walker ordered his crew. Tomorrow we hit another convoy, and another the day after that. Every day we'll show the Empire that all their power, all their ships, all their technology means nothing against an enemy they can't understand. As the crew began their rest rotation, Walker remained on the bridge, watching the distant flares of Imperial ships still firing at phantoms. He knew that somewhere in the Empire's vast fleet, someone would be learning from this, trying to understand how a single human ship could cause so much chaos. That person would be dangerous, would be a real threat. But for now, the Empire's own pride would keep them from listening to anyone who suggested they might need to change. The Defiant had become more than just a ship. It had become fear itself, a ghost that haunted the dreams of Imperial commanders. And fear, Walker knew, was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. The Imperial command ship Eternal Glory floated in space, its golden hull reflecting the light of nearby stars. Commander Reed stood at its main viewport, his hands clasped behind his back, as he studied the holographic displays showing the Empire's recent defeats. For 2 weeks, the human ship Defiant had struck at will, disappearing like smoke each time the Empire's forces tried to respond. Show me the pattern again, Reed ordered. Unlike his fellow commanders, who raged at their inability to catch the ghost ship, Reed had spent days studying every encounter, every attack. He had done something no Imperial commander had done in centuries. He had started learning from his enemy. Sir, there is no pattern, his subordinate replied nervously. The human ship appears randomly. We cannot predict. There is always a pattern, Reed interrupted. We simply haven't learned to see it yet. He walked to the central tactical display, where red dots marked each of the Defiant's attacks. These humans, they think differently from us. We must learn to think as they do. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Walker was facing challenges of his own. The constant stealth operations had pushed their systems to the limit. The crew was tired, working endless hours to keep their technological edge over the Empire. Status report, Walker called out, noting the dark circles under his crew's eyes. Main stealth systems at 60%, Captain, Thomas reported from engineering. We can't keep running them continuously like this. We need at least 12 hours of downtime for proper maintenance. Walker nodded grimly. They'd known this would happen eventually. No ship, no matter how advanced, could operate at peak performance indefinitely. Options. There's a debris field from an old battle, Mark suggested from tactical. Lots of metal and radiation. It would help mask our signature while we do repairs. Make it happen, Walker ordered. The Defiant changed course, sliding through space toward the distant debris field. They'd destroyed or disabled 15 Imperial supply convoys in 2 weeks. The Empire's mighty invasion fleet was starting to feel the strain, their ships running low on fuel and ammunition. But as the Defiant approached the debris field, Lisa's voice cut through the bridge's quiet. "Captain, multiple Imperial ships dropping out of hyperspace." Walker spun toward the tactical display. 5 Imperial heavy cruisers had appeared, their formation unlike anything they'd seen before. Instead of the Empire's usual rigid patterns, these ships moved flexibly, covering each other's blind spots. "They're using our tactics," Walker realized, a chill running down his spine. Someone in their command structure is learning. The Imperial ships launched clouds of sensor drones, flooding the area with scanning beams. The Defiant's stealth systems, already strained from weeks of continuous operation, struggled to compensate for the increased scrutiny. "Engineering status," Walker demanded as warning lights began flashing across multiple stations. "Stealth systems failing," Thomas reported, his fingers flying across his controls. "Too many sensor beams, too many frequencies to mask. We need to shut down for a reset, or we'll burn out completely." Walker's mind raced. For the first time, they faced an Imperial commander who thought like a human, adapting, learning, using their own tactics against them. The debris field that was supposed to be their shelter had become a trap. "New transmission," Lisa announced. "It's different from their usual demands." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in carefully practiced human English. "To the crew of the UES Defiant, I am Commander Reed of the Imperial Fleet. Your tactics have taught us much. You have earned the right to surrender with honor. End this hunt now, and your lives will be spared." Walker smiled grimly. "He really has been studying us. He's trying to think like a human." He turned to his crew. "But he's still thinking like an Imperial, trying to script everything. Time to show him how humans really fight." "Sir, we can't maintain stealth," Thomas warned. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now." Walker nodded. "Drop the stealth field. All power to weapons and shields." As his crew stared at him in shock, he smiled. "They want to learn how humans fight. Let's teach them." The Defiant flickered into visibility, its stealth field dissolving to reveal the massive warship in all its glory. The Imperial ships immediately moved to surround them, but Walker had already put his plan into motion. "Launch all drones," he ordered. The Defiant released dozens of small automated craft, but instead of attacking, the drones flew into the debris field, their engines scattering the ancient wreckage in all directions. "Massive sensor interference," Lisa reported. "The debris is creating thousands of false readings." The Imperial ship's neat formation broke apart as they tried to track multiple threats at once. Reed had learned to think differently, but his crews were still bound by centuries of Imperial training. They couldn't handle the chaos, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the changing situation. "Now show them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy," Walker commanded. "Full attack run." The Defiant exploded into action, its engines pushing it to maximum acceleration. Instead of trying to hide, they charged straight at the nearest Imperial cruiser. The Empire's ships had been designed to fight at long range, their weapons optimized for battles fought across thousands of kilometers. They weren't prepared for an enemy that would fight at point-blank range. "They're trying to lock weapons," Mark reported, excitement in his voice. "The debris is confusing their targeting systems." The Defiant roared past the first Imperial cruiser, so close that the crews could see each other through their viewports. The human ship's guns fired continuously, not trying to destroy their massive opponent, but targeting specific systems. "Weapons, sensors, engines. Hard about," Walker ordered as they passed. "Same again. Keep them reacting. Don't give them time to think." The Defiant spun in space, a maneuver that Imperial ships of its size weren't supposed to be able to perform. They struck again and again, darting between the Imperial ships like a wolf among larger, slower prey. Each pass caused more damage. Each attack forced the Imperial ships to respond to a situation their training hadn't prepared them for. "Imperial ships breaking formation," Lisa reported. 3 cruisers have significant damage. They're calling for reinforcements. Walker nodded. They've learned to think differently, but they haven't learned to trust their new thinking yet. The moment things go wrong, they fall back on their old ways. He turned to engineering. How are our systems? Better, Thomas replied. The break from stealth operations let the systems cool down. We can reactivate stealth in 5 minutes. Perfect timing, Walker said as more Imperial ships appeared at the edge of their sensor range. Let them see us win this fight. Then we vanish and let their imagination do our work for us. The Defiant made one final pass through the Imperial formation, its guns blazing. When it emerged on the other side, all 5 of Reed's cruisers were damaged. Their neat formation shattered, their crews shaken by combat unlike anything in Imperial records. Stealth systems ready, Thomas reported. Broadcast on all frequencies, Walker ordered. Let them hear this before we disappear. Lisa transmitted their message. You tried to learn our ways, Commander Reed, but you forgot the most important lesson. Humans don't follow patterns. We create them, break them, and create new ones. We'll be watching your fleet, and next time, we'll have something new for you to learn. 1 month had passed since the UEA's Defiant first appeared in Imperial space. What had begun as a desperate mission by a single warship had evolved into something much more dangerous, a revolution of ideas. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, watching the holographic display that showed the current state of the Empire's territory. Show me the rebellion zones again, Walker said. Red dots appeared across the map, marking places where subject species had begun rising up against Imperial rule. What had once been a few isolated incidents had spread like wildfire across dozens of star systems. 27 major uprisings, Lisa reported, and those are just the ones big enough for us to detect. Our broadcasts of Imperial defeats have reached over 200 systems now. Walker nodded with satisfaction. This had always been part of the plan, not just to stop the Empire's invasion fleet, but to show the galaxy that the mighty Empire wasn't invincible. Hope was spreading among species that had lived under Imperial control for centuries. Imperial command ship detected, Mark announced from Tactical. It's Reed again. He's brought a full battle group, 30 ships, including their new hunter-killer vessels. Walker moved to the main viewport, watching as the Imperial formation took shape at the edge of the system. Unlike the rigid patterns the Empire had used a month ago, this formation was fluid, adaptive. Reed had been learning. He's good, Walker admitted. He's adapted faster than any of the other Imperial commanders. He studied the formation, noting how the smaller ships moved in unpredictable patterns, while the larger vessels maintained a defensive core. He's using our own tactics against us, but with Imperial resources. Captain, Thomas called from engineering, concern in his voice. I'm detecting unusual sensor activity. They're using a new type of scanning technology, something we haven't seen before. Walker frowned. Can our stealth systems handle it? Thomas worked his controls, running simulations. I think so, but it's going to be close. They're clearly designed specifically to detect our stealth field. Lisa looked up from her communication station. Incoming transmission from Commander Reed. The bridge screens lit up with the image of Reed, his Imperial uniform pristine, his expression calm but determined. Captain Walker. Yes, we know your name now. We know much about you and your ship. Walker kept his face neutral, not showing his surprise that the Empire had learned his identity. Commander Reed, I see you've brought friends, afraid to face us alone again. Reed smiled slightly. I've learned from you, Captain. Humans use every advantage they have. Only a fool fights with one arm tied behind his back. His expression grew more serious. Your campaign has been impressive. You've hurt us, made us question methods that have served us for millennia. But it ends today. The transmission cut off, and Walker turned to his crew. He's trying to get in our heads. Time to show him that humans don't rattle easily. He moved to the tactical station. What's he really up to? This isn't just about catching us. Mark studied the Imperial deployment. They're forming a perimeter around this entire sector. And look, he highlighted several ships on the display. These vessels are broadcasting powerful signals on all frequencies. They're trying to blanket the area with communications. They want to stop our broadcasts, Walker realized. They know we've been inspiring rebellions. They're trying to cut off the flow of information. He smiled grimly, which means we're hurting them worse than we thought. The bridge crew exchanged looks of determination. What had started as a mission to delay the invasion fleet had become something much bigger. They were changing the Empire itself, forcing it to confront its own weaknesses. New Imperial ships arriving, Mark reported suddenly. Dozens of them. They're creating a full blockade of the system. Walker studied the tactical display, watching as more Imperial ships arrived. Reed was committing massive resources to this trap, far more than should be necessary to catch a single human warship. Something didn't add up. Why commit so many ships to catch us? Walker wondered aloud. Unless, his eyes widened in realization, unless they know what we've been planning next. He turned to Lisa. Any word from our allies? Lisa checked her communications. Last transmission from the Krull resistance was 6 hours ago. They were preparing for the operation as planned. Walker's mind raced. The plan had been their most ambitious yet, coordinating with 3 different resistance movements to simultaneously strike at Imperial fuel depots. If Reed knew about it, all those resistance fighters would be walking into a trap. We need to warn them, Walker said. But if we break stealth to send a message, Reed will have us. The crew fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Thousands of resistance fighters could die if they didn't warn them. But if the Defiant was caught, Earth would lose its last defender. There's another way, Thomas said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the engineer. We've been working on a modification to our communication systems. We can send a narrow-beam transmission that might slip through their sensors, but he hesitated. We'd have to get dangerously close to one of their ships. Walker didn't hesitate. Plot the course. We're not letting those resistance fighters die. The Defiant moved silently through the Imperial blockade, its stealth systems straining against the new scanning technology. Every crew member held their breath as they slipped between massive Imperial warships, close enough to see individual weapons emplacements on their hulls. In position, Mark whispered, though there was no need to keep his voice down. Nearest Imperial ship is only 5 kilometers away. Send the warning, Walker ordered. Narrow beam, encrypted, resistance frequencies only. The message was sent, a tiny sliver of data slipping past the Imperial blockade. But as the transmission completed, alarms blared across the Defiance bridge. They've detected us. Thomas shouted. The new sensors picked up our transmission. The nearest Imperial ship immediately opened fire, massive energy weapons slicing through space where the Defiant had been moments before. The human ship's engines roared to life, pushing it away from the attack. All ships converging on our position, Mark reported, his voice tight with tension. They're using a search pattern we haven't seen before. Reed must have been planning this for weeks. Walker gripped the arms of his command chair. Full evasive maneuvers. Use the debris from their own shots for cover. The Defiant rolled and twisted through space, dodging the increasingly accurate Imperial fire. Reed had indeed learned from their previous encounters, anticipating the human ship's movements and countering their usual tactics. Engine hit. Thomas called out as the ship shuddered under Imperial fire. Stealth systems failing. We can't maintain the field. The Defiant flickered into visibility, its stealth systems offline. Immediately, dozens of Imperial weapons locked onto the human vessel. Walker knew they couldn't win this fight through conventional means. They were outgunned and surrounded. All power to forward shields, Walker ordered. Set course directly for Reed's command ship. His crew stared at him in disbelief. Sir, Mark questioned. They expect us to run, to hide. Walker explained. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going straight for their commander. The Defiant surged forward, absorbing punishing fire from all sides as it charged toward the Imperial command ship. Reed, seeing the human vessel barreling toward him, ordered his ship to take evasive action. But the massive Imperial vessel couldn't move quickly enough. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Walker commanded. "I want every ship in this sector to hear this." Lisa opened the channels, and Walker spoke clearly and confidently. "Commander Reed, you've learned to fight like humans. Now learn to think like humans. Look at your tactical display, count your ships, then look at what those ships are supposed to be protecting." Across Imperial space, communications officers heard the transmission and relayed it to their commanders. Reed, his eyes widening, rushed to his main tactical display. While his entire battle group had been focused on trapping the Defiant, the Imperial home fleet had been drawn away from its normal patrol routes. The fuel depots, supposedly the targets of the resistance attack, had been a decoy. "Check the Imperial Palace defenses," Reed ordered, sudden understanding dawning on his face. Reports flooded in. Palace defenses were under attack, but not by resistance fighters. The real attack was coming from within, from Imperial citizens inspired by the Defiance broadcasts. People who had never questioned Imperial rule were now rising up, demanding change. As the Defiant raced toward Reed's command ship, Walker continued his broadcast. "You've spent a month chasing one ship, Commander. But we weren't just fighting you with the Defiant. We were fighting you with an idea. The idea that the Empire isn't invincible, that change is possible. And ideas, Commander Reed, are much harder to kill than ships." Reed watched in shock as reports of civil unrest flooded in from across Imperial space. The Defiant had never been the real threat. It had simply been the spark that lit a much larger fire, a fire that was now burning through the very heart of the Empire. The Imperial Palace shimmered in the light of twin suns, its golden spires reaching toward the sky, like fingers grasping for the stars themselves. For 3,000 years, it had stood as the unquestioned center of power in the galaxy. No enemy had ever reached its hallowed halls. No challenge to its authority had ever succeeded. Until today. Inside the Grand Council chamber, the 12 High Lords of the Empire sat in stunned silence as reports continued to flood in. 43 systems in open rebellion. 17 Imperial fleet groups refusing orders. And most shocking of all, crowds of Imperial citizens gathering in the streets of the capital itself, demanding reforms that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "How did it come to this?" asked the eldest of the High Lords, his voice quavering with age and disbelief. "How could one human ship cause so much chaos?" The Imperial Intelligence Director rose from his seat, his face grave. "My lords, it was never about the ship. The humans understood something we have forgotten, that our greatest strength was also our greatest weakness." He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing the spread of rebellions across Imperial space. "For 3,000 years, we have ruled through power and fear. We made the galaxy afraid of us. The humans simply taught them not to be afraid anymore." In deep space, far from the Imperial capital, the UES Defiant limped through the darkness. The battle with Reed's forces had left the ship badly damaged. Life support was functioning on backup systems, and the main engines could manage only a fraction of their normal power. But they had survived, escaping the Imperial trap through a combination of daring and desperation. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, looking at the faces of his exhausted crew. They had accomplished something no one thought possible. A single human ship had changed the course of galactic history. "Damage report," Walker asked, his voice rough from smoke inhalation after a fire had broken out on the lower decks. "Not good," Thomas replied from engineering. "Main propulsion at 30%. Stealth systems completely offline. Weapons at 50%. He managed a tired smile. "But we're still flying, Captain." Walker nodded. They had known this mission might be one way. The fact that they were alive at all was a testament to their crew's skill and determination. "Captain," Lisa called from communications, excitement breaking through her exhaustion. "Incoming transmission from Earth." There, They're saying the Imperial invasion fleet has stopped advancing. They're holding position at the edge of our solar system. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. After weeks of fighting, the news seemed almost too good to believe. More than that, Lisa continued, her eyes wide as she processed the incoming data. The Imperial High Command has sent an official request for negotiations. She looked up, meeting Walker's gaze. Captain, they want to talk peace. Walker moved to the main viewport, looking out at the stars. They've realized that even if they destroy Earth, they can't destroy what we've started. The Empire is facing rebellions on too many fronts. They can't fight everyone at once. Incoming transmission, Lisa announced. It's from Commander Reed's ship. The bridge screens activated, showing Reed's face. The Imperial commander looked tired. The perfect composure of their first meeting, now replaced by the weariness of a man who had fought hard and learned difficult lessons. Captain Walker, Reed began, his voice formal but lacking its earlier condescension. The Imperial High Council has authorized me to establish a direct communication channel for preliminary discussions regarding a potential cessation of hostilities. Walker allowed himself a small smile. In simple terms, Commander, they want to talk peace. Reed's expression remained carefully neutral, but Walker thought he saw a flicker of respect in the Imperial's eyes. Yes, recent events have caused a revaluation of Imperial policy regarding Earth and other non-Imperial worlds. Recent events, Walker repeated. You mean the fact that a single human warship made your entire empire question itself? That people throughout Imperial space are demanding change. Reed's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. I have been instructed to arrange a meeting between representatives of Earth and the Imperial High Council. The meeting would take place on neutral ground, with full diplomatic protocols in effect. Walker considered this. It could be a trap, but his instincts told him otherwise. The Empire was pragmatic above all else. If continuing the war threatened their hold on power, they would seek peace, at least until they could regain control of their rebellious systems. We'll bring your offer back to Earth, Walker said. But understand this, Commander, we won't accept a peace that leaves the Empire free to threaten us in the future. And we won't abandon the people who have risen up against Imperial rule. Reed's expression changed slightly, something like surprise crossing his features. You truly care about the rebel worlds. They are not your people. That's the difference between us, Commander, Walker replied. You divide the galaxy into your people and others. We see all sentient beings as having the right to determine their own future. He leaned forward slightly. Remember that when your High Council is deciding what terms to offer. The transmission ended, and Walker turned to his crew. Set course for Earth. It's time to go home. As the Defiant limped toward Earth, Walker spent long hours in his quarters, thinking about what they had accomplished and what might come next. They had saved Earth, at least for now, but they had also started something much bigger, a fundamental change in how the galaxy viewed the Empire. 3 days later, the Defiant approached Earth's orbit. The planet's defensive fleet moved to escort them home, ships flashing their lights in salute to the vessel that had accomplished the impossible. As they made their final approach, Lisa called Walker to the communication station. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy, she said, wonder in her voice. Messages from worlds we've never contacted before. They've all heard about the Defiant, about what we did. She looked up at him, eyes shining. They're calling us the ship that changed the stars. Walker looked around at his crew, seeing in their faces the pride of people who knew they had made history. The Empire will try to regain control, he warned them. This isn't over. Peace talks could take years, and the Empire won't give up its power easily. But something has changed, Thomas said from his station. They can't go back to how things were. Too many people have seen that the Empire can be challenged. Walker nodded. That's our real victory. Not defeating their ships or disrupting their supply lines, but showing the galaxy that change is possible. He moved to the main viewport, watching as Earth grew larger in their view. The Empire built its power on the idea that resistance was futile. We showed everyone that one ship, one crew willing to think differently, could change everything. As the Defiant settled into orbit around Earth, news of their arrival spread across the planet. In cities and towns across the world, people gathered to celebrate the ship that had saved humanity from imperial conquest. But in quiet conversations, in government halls and military bases, the discussions focused on what would come next.